All right. My name is Chris Cook. Everybody calls me Chris Fellow, and this is my story.
Gotcha. So, for the people who don't know, I'm like, tell them where you from.
Born and raised in New Orleans.
So, for yourself, how it was for you, like growing up.
So, I mean, I grew up on the West Bank, in Gretna, and growing up was good, man. I mean, my dad, for me, I had a good childhood. Mom was around, dad was around. You know, they separated when I was young, but I was still able to be with both of them, and yeah, everything was good with the childhood.
Gotcha. So, being young, seeing your parents separate.
Yep.
Did you feel like, it would that kind of, it would turn you like a different way or like anything like that?
Well, I wouldn't say necessarily changed me that much.
You.
It didn't necessarily affect me too much. I mean, just because they were both like great at co-parenting and they were both there, right? And I just noticed, when it was young, I was like, well, mom and dad doesn't live together anymore. What's going on with that? But it never really, I don't think it like shaped me one way or another. More so seeing my dad being an entrepreneur and being able to kind of live, he was in control of his own time, right? Because I think that's one of the main things that we all strive for is like time, right? We can never get time back, so we want to, enjoy the time we have. And I was able to, I seen him that he was able to do that, and that's what kind of drove me to want to go down the entrepreneur road.
Gotcha. So, entrepreneur road, everyone know it was not easy at all.
Definitely not.
So,
definitely not.
Bring me back to the year that you was like, you know what? I'm about to become a full entrepreneur. I'm about to not work nowhere. I'm about to just take the leap.
Yep. Okay. So so I guess the first time the kind of entrepreneurship came, I was working. So okay, I'll back up just a little bit. So my dad used to own bars and nightclubs. Majority was on Bourbon Street, and as much as he wanted me not to be in that business, he was like, look, go to school, get a degree. Like, I don't want you in this business. There's nothing good that happens after midnight. I still gravitated towards it, right? Like, I just was in that. That's what kind of led me to start throwing parties and doing promotions and stuff like that, which was, I guess, my first kind of step into entrepreneurship, right? Now, I was still working, and that wasn't like a full-time gig. When I left my job, and I decided to, I told myself, I said, this is it. I said, I'll never work for anybody else again, right? And I opened up a little smoothie shop on Magazine, and this was 2012. This was 2011, 2012. And from that day, I've never worked for anybody else.
Hey, that's a blessing.
It is a blessing.
So, party promoting. This funny part is, like, if your father said, hey, but nothing good happens after 12. I heard that before.
Yep.
And so what's the craziest thing that you have saw in New Orleans after 12 o'clock?
Oh, my God. I would say the craziest thing actually happened at one of my dad's clubs. One year I threw this Mardi Gras party. It was called Breaking the Balcony. So we're like, I mean, this was late at this point. We're starting to clean up. And I look in the corner, and they got this, and this is all tourists, right? They got this guy and this girl just having sex in the corner. Literally, she just had like her pants pulled down. He's standing up behind her. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? So that's probably the craziest thing I've ever seen.
Everyone, I'm like, welcome to New Orleans.
Right, yeah. I mean, look, growing up here, it's, we're kind of accustomed to crazier things. But a lot of people that's not, they're like, what the hell?
Like, did I really see that? I had to be drunk.
Yeah, for sure.
Gotcha.
For sure.
Opening up with your first business.
Yep.
How was that? And tell the people about, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Man, I'll tell you, I remember when I signed that lease. I remember I was sitting in the building, I signed that lease, and I thought to myself, what the hell did I just get myself into? Because now I'm on the hook for the next 5 years for whatever amount that lease was, and it wasn't cheap. We're talking Magazine Street, so everything on Magazine is not going to be cheap. So yeah, that kind of like it just made me a little nervous. But I was like, look, I got to go full in, and this is what it is. And I think, and I always said you have to get outside of your comfort zone in order to grow, right? If you're just comfortable, then you're just living, you're just passing time, right? So in order to do anything great and better yourself, you have to become uncomfortable, and anything new is going to be uncomfortable. But after time, it just becomes like a normal thing, right? So like when I first got into that business, I was super nervous in the beginning, and then say 6 months in, it was like second nature to me. I was able to do it with no problem.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So, but I met you, like probably 5-6 years ago.
Probably 5-6 years. Yeah. Yep.
It would what is his name? What is his name? I don't want to say his wrong name.
Which one?
I always worked with like Will Smith and Pierre Thomas. What is his name?
Timmy
Timmy
Doe. Yep.
Timmy Doe.
Yep.
On fault, you were selling your suits.
Yep.
Well,
yep.
you were showing your suits. I don't know if you were selling them, but I don't know what you were doing.
So we August we made 10 years. Yeah. So started Fellow in 2014. So yeah, we just came up on 10 years.
Gotcha. So
Yeah.
let's bring it back. Like, how did you come up with the whole concept, the idea?
Yeah. So Fellow, so it kind of started. So the smoothie shop that I said that I opened up, I had that for about 2.5 years, and I was ready to get out of that business. And it was for one, I realized I was like, I'm never gonna get rich doing this, and two, it was just taking up so much of my time. I was missing holidays, birthdays, just special events, all this stuff. So I was like, all right, I want to get out of that. So I was already going to put that business up for sale. At that in that same time frame, I had a buddy of mine that had asked me to be his best man in his wedding. And my good friend Aaron, who is now my business partner, he asked me if I would be his best man and said, hey, let's go get custom suits made. So that's where it kind of started. I've always, been into fashion, grew up. My dad was always well dressed. And so I was like, yeah, man, let's go get suits. Something I always wanted to do. Did it. And in that process, to keep it short, that's when I was like, look, I can do this. I kind of like this. Why didn't I think about this? And, to 6 months later, Fellow was born. And that's the short end of that story.
Fellow.
Yeah.
So, most people don't know.
Yep.
But your last name is not Fellow, and you have Chris Fellow on there. So many people.
So everybody, because my name on social media is Chris Fellow, just to associate myself with the business, they just assume that my last name is Fellow. It's got a little ring, so I'll go with it. But no, my last name's actually Cook. So
so you can always change it.
Hey, yeah, right.
Like, man, you branded.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? I think being an entrepreneur or having something and branding something is good, So
if you branded something, it's so good. People actually think it's your last name.
Yeah. I'll take it.
It was almost like Root Chris, huh?
Right. Yeah.
Chris Fellow, me as that.
That's it.
Gotcha. So out of the 10 years of designing custom suits,
yep.
Which one do you think is your favorite?
Oh, that's hard. That's a tough question. Oh man, I've designed so many over the last 10 years. I don't know if I can say one in particular, but there's been a few. One for this guy that did out-of-town client dinner jacket that we did, and this was probably early on too. This was probably 7-8 years ago, and that's probably still one of my favorites. But man, I've done so many. I couldn't even. Yeah, that's a hard one. I don't know.
Right. And the greatest thing is, it was the first time I really saw you like create a suit and actually party with the person you created a suit was with. Larry.
Yeah.
And so how did y'all meet? And how did that relationship build?
Man, so Larry came to me early on too. Larry's been coming to me for probably let's see, if we're 10 years old, probably eight or maybe 7 to 8 years. I'd say Larry's been coming, and that it started. Look, I've seen him grow as long as he's seen me grow as well, right? Because he was doing parties, and I can kind of relate because I was doing the same thing when I was younger, and I seen him just kind of grow. And one thing I'll say is Larry is a super loyal guy. He's been loyal to me from day one, and he's a good dude. And he's built this following, and honestly, he's single-handedly brought more clients to me than anyone else. And not with trying, not saying like, hey man, you need to go see my boy Chris to go get a suit, whatever. Just from him being who he is and having that influence and people knowing that he's wearing my brand Fellow and then saying, all right, I need to go see this guy Chris because he does Larry suits, which is crazy. and talking about branding and naming and all that stuff, he's built that. But I mean, look, dude, at this point, he can go anywhere in the world and get suits made or whatever he wants to do, right? He's at that level, but he still comes to see me and still hits me up and still wants me to grow. You know, Larry's younger than me, but I almost look up to him like an older brother because he's always spitting some game to me when we're there and kind of, telling me, Chris, you should do this, you should do that, branding this, branding that. So I respect it.
Right. If I kind of felt that when you said it, because I'm older than Larry, and I'm like, and I think about stuff he told me 5 years ago.
Yeah.
He's like, what you said? I'm like,
yeah, for sure, for sure.
And that's dope, someone,
Absolutely.
But, I think everyone can actually give people, like, learning experience. It depends on what you're around.
For sure.
So,
for sure.
That's a
it's that saying, it's like if you're the smartest man in the room, you're in the wrong room, right?
Correct.
So, you need to be around people that's doing things that to make you want to grow and be better and smarter than you. And I think that's definitely, it helps a lot.
Gotcha. So, out of, 10 plus years of being in business.
Yep.
I'm like, what do you enjoy most about it? And like, what do you actually, dislike about it?
Yeah. So things I enjoy, probably the things that I enjoy the most. I love designing, but I get the most satisfaction after we've kind of designed stuff. And when we come in, what we call is our second fitting or our final fitting is when a client comes in to try everything on. And there's no better feeling than when that client tries that garment on and it fits perfect, and we don't have any adjustments, no alterations, and he's super happy. That makes me that makes me the happiest. That's the best feeling. Now on the flip side of that is exact opposite. It is when you do a fitting and something doesn't fit right, and you got to make these adjustments, and it could be something super minor. It could be pant length, hem length, or something, which is super easy. But then the more complicated things are posture-related issues or sleeve pitch or certain things like that. So those are the ones that I dislike about the business. But it's inevitable. When I first started, I remember I was like, I'm going to take the best measurements. They're going to be perfect, and everything's going to fit perfect. And then you quickly realize that's just not the nature of how this business works. And there's always going to be tweaks. And same thing with, no one's perfect, but then also people's weight fluctuate as well. So you got all these things kind of working against you.
Gotcha. So, what do you see where do you see your business going? 3 years from now.
Yeah. So that's actually a good question. It's something that I've been thinking about a lot lately. And I don't exactly know. I can't give you the exact answer, but I'm at the point in time now where it's like, do I want to start expanding, potentially to other markets, whether it's just in Louisiana, but just different cities, so maybe Baton Rouge or Lafayette or something like that, or is it, potentially into different states? I don't know. Like I said, I don't know the exact answer to that, but definitely looking for some potential growth.
Gotcha. So, what's your advice to someone right now watching this interview, thinking about custom, designing, fabrics, suits, clothes?
Yep.
Do you have any advice for them?
I mean, obviously, if you're a creative person, if you're passionate about clothing or whatever it may be, painting or whatever, and you're looking to start a business, you obviously got to do your research, do your due diligence. But what I find most, and it's kind of, it kind of happens to me sometimes. The older I get, I guess my threshold for risk becomes lower, which is kind of crazy. When I was young, I'd risk it all. It doesn't matter, right? But I feel like now I have more to lose, so to speak. But the point of what I'm saying is that at some point after you do your research, your due diligence, you just got to kind of jump out the plane. And sometimes you just need to put your parachute on the way down. Because a lot of people, what happens is they get that analysis and paralysis where they'll just keep overanalyzing and, they will, when the time's right, I'll do this, or I need to learn this, or whatever it may be. And then that dream that they have just never happens because they're scared, right? And the way our brains are wired is to kind of shut down when we get uncomfortable, like I said, or there's some type of fear. But as entrepreneurs, we need to kind of just push through that and make it happen for better or worse, right? We don't know we don't have a crystal ball and say that this business is going to be successful or whatever it is. All we can do is try. But you obviously, it's a calculated risk, right? You have to do that research. You have to know your market. And look, for some people it happens quick. Some people it takes a very, very, very long time. So that's what I'd say. But look, if you have the passion, you want to do it, you just got to do it.
Just got to do it.
Just got to do it. That's it.
Gotcha. So, all right, what's next for you?
It's another good question. So aside from Fellow, there's actually another business brand that I've kind of been working on for the last year that I can't give too many specifics on it, but that could potentially be coming in the next year or so. So yeah, excited about that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Also, last but not least, tell the world. I'm like, what can he find you at on social media?
Yes. So on Instagram, it is Chris_Fellow. On TikTok, which I'm hoping that they're not going to ban it, right? I just seen something the other day that TikTok was going to get banned January 19th or something. But on TikTok, it is just Chris, no underscore Fellow. And then website for Fellow is fellowmenswear.com. And then the business page is Fellow_menswear. I had to think about that for a second.
But you have to remember, huh?
Yeah, I had to remember it.
Oh, but that's your story, and we done.
Cool.